Pat Hessian on ABC Local Radio Queensland.
Yeah, you pretty well call it storm chasing. There's basically a storm chasing industry in the States these days. It probably came about more after the movie Twister back in the late 90s, but people like Roger, who I chase with, who's the tour leader of the company I go with, he's been chasing for, I think, 35 years and been involved with his business for 15. So
it's funny you bring up the movie because watching some of the footage you've taken, your day job is as a TV cameraman, so you've taken some pretty good footage along the way. The countryside looks pretty well like what they made in the movie, doesn't it?
Yep, Tornado Alley, pretty well from the coast down at Texas all the way up to the Canadian border is pretty well flat.
That's right.
And that's one of the geographical features that allow these severe storms to develop and produce tornadoes.
And they've got those barns and you've got everything else around the place. It just looks a picture. It looks like they might have had a bit of rain along with some of the tornadoes too, because it's quite green in the countryside from what I've seen there. What's the lure of chasing tornadoes?
Well, I've had a passion for severe weather since I was a kid. I grew up in Weipa up on Cape York, so we'd experienced cyclones. I even think back in the early days, the principal actually sent us home. We actually walked home, I think, in a Category 1 or Category 2 cyclone, and there were branches falling down out of the trees and stuff. And I can even recur occasions where we had water spouts when I was living in Weipa, and even when I was in high school, I managed to do a little bit of a work experience with the Weather Bureau at their observer station there. So I've just always had that passion for severe weather, and about 5 years ago, I had an illness and stuff and had a big, long think and thought about things I wanted to do if, and I thought, well, I've had my rainy day. And booked on a tour 5 years ago as a guest and, I've been going to the States ever since.
That's right. The thing is, it seems to really get in the system. You can't back away from it at any stage, to the extent where you've been not just involved in going on tours, you're actually helping to lead some of these tours. I'm wondering, what is it that lures people to come and experience this up close? Because it looks like you get pretty close.
Yeah, a lot of people on tour, they've got sort of two lots of guests. You've got ones that are severe weather passion people, and then you've got others that have that bucket list, and they've decided that this is one of those things they want to do one day in their life. A lot of people have it on their bucket list and then they return as a guest again and again and again. So it's sort of, it just sort of gets in your blood. Just a lot of people that are passionate about severe weather come on the tours.
Well, I've got some of it here. Let's have a listen to part of what was going on this trip in Tornado Alley.
There is so much lightning with this storm, gang, I'd be afraid to get out of the car. I really would. Yeah. There it is. There's your violent tornado right off to the south. Go up this hill just a hair farther, Tom, okay? Pass it. Oh! Right there! Violent tornado! This is extremely violent! New cells that are feeding up into the rotating updraft and just blast. We're gonna have to go further east and drop down to Mitchell. We can't even take the chance of cutting south here at Wessington Springs.
There you go, a taste of what they're up to when they go storm chasing. I can imagine the adrenaline would be pumping because it looks pretty close. I know the lens can be deceiving sometimes. How close do you reckon you got?
We probably get no closer than, say, a kilometre or two away from them.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, there are other chasers that get even closer than that, but there is sort of an envelope that you don't want to really push because we can see what the storm's doing with all the data and everything like that, but you do have to have that risk factor into it to be able to give yourself exit strategies and stuff like that. So when we're chasing, we always have an exit route. So if the tornado or the storm does something that's not in the textbook, we can just drop back or blast east or south or something and get out of its way. Even if it does do a swing, we can see that happening on the data.
Well, how predictable are they once they're started out on a path? Do they move around like cyclones have a tendency to do at times?
Tornadoes usually tend to take a straight path, sort of southwest to northeast. There are the rogue ones that then will do things that aren't usual. There was a tornado in El Reno in Oklahoma last year that unfortunately killed some scientists and researchers, and that was something that was around about 1 mile to 2 miles wide, and it did do some loops and stuff like that. Those research guys were actually what they call well within the notch, which we sort of usually don't go right into. We sort of can drive back and look into the notch and there's the tornado there, but these guys were doing research where they dropped the pods and things like that right in the path. So
like they did in the movie.
Exactly.
Yep.
So they didn't have a lot of space to move and then it came across them.
Paul Lyons is here this afternoon on ABC Local Radio Queensland. He's just back from the States where he's been on a number of tours in different states. When have you felt that you might have been too close for comfort?
I've actually never felt that way. I have a lot of respect for Roger and his experience and not only my first time as a guide being over there, but Roger's got other guides that have been with him for over 10 years. And the main thing is you want to view it safely, and, you know, there's no point not coming home from an experience like that. So you're always looking, you know, just for all the options and things like that, so that, yeah, you can view it, stand there, view it safely, and, go home and tell the stories and share the photos and videos.
What about the damage they can cause, though? I'm thinking about cases where you might, in fact, be following a twist or a tornado and you go through an area where people's homes, their livelihoods have just been destroyed seconds ago.
Yeah, that's a hard thing with the company that I chase with, and there's certain elements of the chaser community. Some are looking for the crazy disaster, and some of us are just looking for the awesomeness that Mother Nature does. And you do come across those areas, but the emergency services in the States are really good nowadays. So they've got sheriffs basically tracking the tornadoes. They're basically driving alongside of us, and as soon as it's gone through a town, unfortunately, the emergency services are in there helping out. So, and the warnings are getting so much better now. The scientific data is getting better, where the Weather Service can nearly issue, say, a week out that, you know, be prepared in 7 days' time. This looks like the ingredients are going to build up to a severe day.
From what you've said there's a lot of weather information that's available. I'm wondering how that compares when you come back and you start doing your professional work here in Queensland when we have severe weather.
Yeah, I think it's more because America's got a larger population area, a lot more, you know, communities and infrastructure at risk, so the amount of data that's out there to help warn people is a lot more than Australia. We get a fair amount of severe weather in Australia, but we've just got such a land mass with not a lot of population that there's sort of no reason to warn out back where there's, you know, some kangaroos in the desert. So the data we have over here is probably akin to what they've had in the States back in the 80s and the 90s. So chasing over there, you've got a lot of data, but when you do get on the storm, it's a case of reading the sky. So the data then becomes a backup, and you're reading the storm with your own eyes. And someone like Roger Hill, who I chase with, like I said, has been chasing for 35 years, so he can sort of look at it. And
when you think about there's a flood or there's something else going on, if you've got that local knowledge, the local knowledge is the important thing, because you've been here, you've seen the way the conditions might work specific to this particular region. So, yeah, you can understand how some of that might start to play in there.
Yeah, well, certainly people like Roger, and the longer I go over there, you learn more the geographical features that affect weather. Like, you know, there's a low pressure system that basically forms over Denver every afternoon because of the way the Rocky Mountains are orientated and the way the wind comes in. So not only do you have the larger scales weather systems, there's all these little local factors that come into effect that actually either will kill or, you know, invigorate a thunderstorm. So once you start to learn all those little things, you bring that on, and you sort of start to take it all in, I suppose.